Steve Collins is one of the greatest college swimming coaches in the last 100 years. In the 37 years that he's been head coach of SMU's women's swimming and diving team, he's led the Mustangs to 17 conference championship titles, 15 NCAA top 10 finishes, and over 240 All-American honors. On top of that, Steve's led 32 athletes at 9 separate Olympic Games. While I can continue to tell you about his achievements, it would be enough to fill a podcast episode in full. So for anybody interested, please have a look at his bio that I linked in the description. Steve and I here have a conversation about all elements of his coaching career, about how he got started, how he very quickly progressed to head coach, and the philosophy that he's been implementing over the last 4 decades. On top of that, we talk about his athletes, what it takes to be successful and healthy on his team, and what qualities he looks for when he's recruiting. And on top of that, Steve shares some of his best memories on the pool deck, both as a college coach and an international coach. I'm privileged to see Steve on the pool deck on a regular basis and to see him in action where he puts his wealth of knowledge to use. So I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I had having it, and I hope you walk away with something valuable. If you're encouraged to support the podcast, please have a look at the Patreon in the description link. And with that, my name is Alex Shozda. This is the Shozda Show. Let's begin. So how do you think your girls swam this weekend against Texas A&M?
I thought it was a good meet. We knew going into the meet that they were going to be really strong. So there wasn't any expectation that, we're going to upset Texas A&M in this meet. But, they really, I think, stepped up to the level of competition. We have a few girls that had started resting for the end of the season because, they weren't going to be on our conference team. And that was very nice to see some of them do their lifetime bests. But I was, mainly wanted to see our team, respond to the level of competition. We were really happy that we won 3 of the events. We won the 200 butterfly, the 100 free. Lucrecia had a really good 100 freestyle. And then really happy with winning the last relay. So, when you're going up against a tough team, if you can win the last relay, everybody comes out of the meet with a positive, taste in their mouth and excited for the next competition. We're really working on swimming fast in multiple days because we know that's what we'll have to do at conference. So came back on Saturday morning with a lot of race simulation type, events in practice. We did some, dive racing with tech suits on, and then some fast pace with tech suits on after that. And that was a really great workout for our team. And I think we accomplished a lot, based on how we competed the second day in practice. So it was a good weekend for us.
Yeah. It was also senior night. How many girls did you graduate, or will you be graduating?
10. Yeah.
Man, so the question I have is, you've been at SMU for about 37 years now, right? So if you multiply that by 10 students on average every single year, you've graduated a lot of swimmers. So what do you think is the most important thing that you would like your swimmers to walk away from when they finish their 4 years here? Like, if there's one thing that you can pass down and it would stick with them, what would that be?
That's a great question. I think there's so many positive things that a person can get out of, being a part of a team, being a part of a tradition. And but I think overall, I want to see them, leave SMU with a real positive experience, and to have learned how to work together as a group. And I think that benefits them as they move forward, and whether it's the corporate world, working in the medical field, that they learn how to, deal with different situations, different circumstances, different types of people. And I think as I'm writing recommendations for, people going to medical school or law school, or applying for a position with a corporation or a company, that's one of the things that I always try to bring out is that they've had that type of experience and how important that is to being a part of a team. Because I think in so many walks of life, you have to be able to operate as a part of a group, part of a team, and hopefully they've also learned a lot about being leaders. I always stress that everyone can be a leader as a part of our team and lead in all different types of ways. But another thing that I try to bring out, when I'm, recommending these young women for, opportunities down the road.
On a fun note, what do your swimmers call you? Coach, Steve, Mr., Sir?
Recently, it's been Coach Steve. Coach Steve seems to be the popular term. It changes over time. I think, Coach. I'm not opposed to people calling me Coach. I feel that that's a sign of respect. So I have a lot of swimmers that would just call me Coach. Many over the years that have called me by my first name. But currently, I think Coach Steve seems to be the normal term.
Yeah, I feel like that's the default for a lot of athletes as well. It's not too strict, not too loose. It's the safe space. So how'd you get started in coaching? I know you swam for University of Florida for a while, or was it Florida State?
Florida State.
Florida State,
yeah.
Excuse me. You're captain of the team there?
I was, yeah, senior year.
Tell me a little bit about your swimming career there and then how you went about getting into coaching after you graduated.
Well, grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and swam for Greater Columbus Swim Club there. And I think at that time, I started, thinking that this is, what I wanted to do, be a coach. You had a good friend who's now coaching at Episcopal High School as an assistant there, Paul Wise. I can remember us both, always talking about, we're going to come back to, our club and coach the team. And, when I was at Florida State, I definitely was a swimmer that improved a lot in college. I was lucky to get recruited, I think, down to FSU. And one of the graduate assistants that we had at that time in college swimming, I don't know that there was a lot of full-time assistant coaches in the business. I think a lot of them were, GAs and that type of thing. But one of them was head swim at SMU, and told us a lot of stories about the program here. And so when I graduated from Florida State, I was applying to different schools to be a graduate assistant, and SMU was one of the places that I did get an assistantship with, and so I ended up choosing that one primarily because of the level of the program and the things that I'd heard from John Rubottom. So came here, was a GA for a year, worked with the men's team, and then I took an assistant position at South Carolina and worked there for a number of years as the assistant and then as the head coach, and then eventually came back to SMU.
So what impacted your decision to move from South Carolina to SMU? I guess also you mentioned that you were working there as an assistant coach and moved up to head coach. Sounds fairly quickly since you were there.
I was a head coach at 24.
Right.
So
how did that work out? You think it was luck, a lot of hard work, or a lot of other things came together?
It was circumstances for sure. I was lucky to get the position. They moved on from the head coach fairly quickly after I had come there, and took that opportunity and did a great job the first year, and they kept me on. So pretty unusual path in some ways. I think a lot of times, coaches will work for many years as an assistant. Where I just had a couple of years as an assistant, but you know, it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah. Is there anything that you weren't really prepared for? Did you feel like it came up too quick?
Oh, there was a lot of things that I learned on the job for sure, for sure. We, I can remember, thinking about, wonder how this budget works. But I had great mentors there. Ron Smar, who was the head men's tennis coach, basically took me under his wing, and I learned a lot from him as far as recruiting, team management, working with the administration. So, I was the type of person that was always looking to learn from older coaches, whether it was in the sport of swimming or other sports. So I think that benefited me a lot, that I didn't come in with the idea that, I know everything, my way or the highway type of attitude. So I think that was a really good learning experience.
So when you came out to SMU, what were some of the things that you saw that they did really well, and what were some of the things that you thought you can work on going forward?
Well, when I came to the team, I think there had been a great tradition with the men's team, and then some turnover on the women's side. So, I knew that having some stability was really important, and tried to instill a real positive atmosphere to the team, and we had some great swimmers on the team, some great potential that we were able to develop, and but I learned pretty quickly that the level of expectation was really high. So worked really hard to try to match the the accomplishments of the other sports at SMU as quickly as I could. At the time, the track team was very strong, the tennis team was very strong, men's swimming had been a perennial top 10 team. So those are pretty high standards. But I think that helped, and I think it helped too. We were in the Southwest Conference. University of Texas was the top team. So we immediately had a target to shoot for, and I think that was really beneficial, whether it was from recruiting or training or competing.
So it sounds super high expectations, and clearly with high expectations, you got to put in a lot of work. So what were some of the specific things that you were working on right off the bat and that worked really well for you?
Well, it was an interesting time. Right now, I mean, we're sitting in this amazing facility. We have 20 plus lanes to train in, and
Yeah, a lot of the masters who are alumni here they like to talk about the good old days, as they say, with the outdoor pool and kind of less lavish or up-to-date facilities.
I think that probably helped us to a certain extent. We did have an outdoor 50-meter pool, and that was key for recruiting, key for training, that we were able to utilize that facility. But our 6-lane indoor pool had incredible history. It was a really neat facility, and the fact that it had originally was a basketball coliseum, and so they dropped a pool in the middle of a basketball court and turned that into a natatorium. And
yeah, what was that like at meets? I imagine if you filled the stands, it would have been obscene.
Yeah, it was totally insane when for big meets, the seating came right down to the deck, and there was probably a 3.5 foot wall that went around that separated the pool deck from the seating. So if you were sitting in the front row, you could literally, reach out and touch somebody, who was on the pool deck. So that provided a great atmosphere, and many of the big meets, attracted a big crowd. So I can remember as a graduate assistant, we had a meet that was a precursor to the SMU Classic. And I think they, at the time, was called the Dr. Pepper Invite. And Coach Mack would invite 2 other teams in for like a tri-meet. And I think when I was swimming, we had Iowa and UCLA in that meet, and it was a packed house. There was a picture in the Dallas Times Herald of me jumping up in the air after an exciting race. So it was a great atmosphere, and I think being right in the center of campus, that a lot of students came to watch the swim meets and so forth. So it was a lot of fun.
So what are some of your favorite competition memories?
Well, probably too many to try to even narrow it down. Certainly in the beginning, swimming in the Southwest Conference, trying to get some of our swimmers qualified to go to the NCAAs, whether it was relays or, individuals, that was super exciting for me at the time. And, then taking them to the NCAAs and, getting, people into the finals. I can remember one of our former swimmers who swims masters here, Dr. Janny Jordan, getting second at the NCAA championships to, I think, an Olympic gold medalist in the 200 backstroke was, an amazing memory. A lot of great NCAA championship, memories. We had, our first individual champion, Susan Lipscomb, who came to SMU and kind of retired from swimming, and then decided she wanted to come back and finish her degree at SMU. That was a great memory for winning the 100 breaststroke. It was a really close race, so the scoreboard at Texas was a little bit different at the time. I remember looking up at the scoreboard and going, she was in lane, I don't know what lane she was in, but I was like, wait a minute, she won the race. It was it was so close. Having our first first relay win was a great memory in the 800 freestyle relay. So lots of great memories. We had some amazing teams over a period of 8 years that we were in the top 4, 8 years in a row. So with our highest finish being second. Lots of great memories. Obviously, coaching Martina Morisova through her career here at SMU was, an amazing experience, both, from an NCAA standpoint and international standpoint. But we're very fortunate, I think, to a certain degree, to have the opportunity to work with so many great swimmers and amazing individuals.
Yeah, and I mean, in your time here, you've produced numerous Olympians. I think almost 60 swimmers that have been All-Americans, holding well over 200 All-American titles. Do you feel like it ever becomes routine? Do you still get the same thrill as when you first stepped in here and you had so much to learn?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. We've had a couple of years now where we haven't had a qualifier. So, I always feel like every season, when you get your first swimmer that's qualified, these days it's a little bit more difficult to tell because, only the A qualifiers standards are for sure. So you have to kind of wait to see what the final list looks like. But, still, hungry for that, for those swimmers to have the opportunity and for our team to have the opportunity to have representation at the national championship is still an amazing thrill for sure.
So you produce so many of these champions. What's your overall training philosophy like?
I think it kind of changes over time. The one thing that is a definite constant is consistency. I think it's really important that we're consistent from the beginning of the season to the end, and then consistent from one year to the next, so that our team is, developing year to year. The amount of yardage that we do, the type of training that we do, I think changes with the team that you have. If you have a team that has, more talented distance swimmers or, more IMers or, more sprinters, the focus is going to change to a certain degree. A lot of times I would set up the training based on the top group as far as what they were going to do, and change that types of sets depending on the events that the swimmers are training for, but still have the same focus. So that if it was going to be a threshold set for the distance swimmers, we would do the same type of thing with the middle distance swimmers or strokers, and the same type of thing with the sprinters, but just in different ways, so that they're getting the same type of impetus on their training, but the sets might be totally different depending on the events that the swimmers are training for, the types of intervals or things like that they could handle.
Yeah. Do you see a pretty big difference in between your sprint groups and your distance groups? So I know traditionally in swimming, I guess there's always kind of friendly butting of heads between distance swimmers and sprinters and what their training looks like.
That definitely can happen. I think currently with our current team, we've got a lot of overlap. So we have swimmers, IM swimmers that, can train with the top distance swimmers on the team, and sprinters that can train with the top distance swimmers on the team. So there's a lot of overlap. So I don't think as much of the, our group is training harder than your group type of attitude. And I think it does help too, because we're a single gender team with one full-time assistant, or in our case, currently an associate head coach and a volunteer. We're mixing, we're moving from group to group. There's a lot of teams that have combined programs or very regimented, group assignments to a certain coach. So I think that can happen more in those types of situations. But, when I look back at our team over the years, we were talking about Martina, for example. A lot of times, she'd be training with our top distance swimmer, Sandra Cam, day in and day out. And if you ask Martina, if she was a sprinter, she'd just kind of laugh, because she might have swum the 50 on our 200 free relay, but, she trained as a middle distance swimmer for sure throughout her career, even though she was the fastest swimmer on the team. So a lot of times it doesn't, the assignment to a group, doesn't necessarily, fit.
Right. Yeah, I was talking with Martina a couple weeks ago because we were
Okay.
recording one as well, and she brought up a memory swimming with, I think Naiko was her name, a Japanese girl who was excellent swimming in practice, would always kick Martina's butt in practice. And when it came to the meets, it was a flip. Martina would be able to turn on that competitiveness and blow Naiko away.
Yeah.
And she was saying that some people are good training in practice and some people are good racing at meets. So do you see that a lot with your swimmers, and how do you prime them to perform when it comes to race time?
Well, I think that's a lot of confidence, building in confidence. So you can do that a lot in training, and then also in racing too. So, you know, I think, it's definitely something that you're always working on, trying to build up the swimmer's confidence so that they can believe in themselves and reach their full potential.
Yeah. Do you think that's more of a mental element of what you're doing outside of the water, or do you think it's more of a physical element, kind of giving them things that they can do in the water in training and be successful at so that they get the feeling of winning and building upon more wins?
I think that's definitely something that is a combination of both for sure. Um, you can build confidence in a lot of different ways, but um, seeing success is really important, whether that's in practice or in racing. And you know, I think that's something that I try to be uh, careful with in practice. You don't want to always have your swimmers going head to head all the time. Um, you can easily end up with one really fast swimmer and you know six broken swimmers. So you want to try to build that. I think I learned that from a coach by the name of Dick Jokums, who coached a lot of great swimmers over his career. And one of the things, he had a bunch of really good distance swimmers at one time at University of Arizona. And, he continually wouldn't let them swim head to head. He'd put them all in the same lane so that, they weren't always teeing off on each other every time. And I think that's, something that you have to be careful about. But, you do the best you can, and trying to help each swimmer reach their potential.
Yeah. How often do you play with dynamic of pushing swimmers and being careful not to push them too much? So I imagine college is a pretty difficult time, just where you are in life, all the new things, all the learning there is,
Yeah.
balancing education and very intense training, probably more intense than any of the swimmers were doing in club. So how do you balance, making them, or not making them, encouraging them to put in the effort to be successful in the program, but not going too far to the point where they have a plateau or quit, etc.?
Yeah, I think, just good communication is really important with the swimmers and being aware, when you see somebody that's, struggling, maybe pulling them aside, giving them a kind word more than, the opposite, I think can help sometimes. And, but I think really being aware of where people are at, what's going on with the team as far as, are a lot of swimmers getting sick, or, knowing when the midterms are coming up and so forth. And in my particular case, going through a college season for so many years, it's pretty much a habit to kind of know, okay, this time of year, everybody's going to be, really stressed from, from practice or from school or, you know, different situations. So having to be aware of that, I think, is really important.
Yeah. Do you balance that also with meets going around? You're kind of talking as well earlier about balancing making the girls race each other in practice. But then there's also the elements of meets throughout the season. Sometimes you're in heavy training periods where you can't perform super fast and you don't shave and you don't suit up. So how do you balance out your schedule throughout the season to make sure that the girls are having some opportunities to swim really fast and feel good, and also some opportunities to just bury through their training cycles?
Yeah, in a college season, there's probably more situations where you're swimming when you're tired than swimming when you're rested. And certainly the same goes with swimming with tech suits on. So we've been trying to balance that by having at least a week to 2 weeks break in between meets. We put a couple of, like, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, we swam 3 teams on one weekend versus swimming 3 meets, 3 weekends in a row. And I think that's something that can be really beneficial because you really need some time not only to recover from a meet, but to build up and work on the things that you saw in the previous meet that you need to work on as a team. So, I think that's something that you try to do. You can't always manage it because, you're trying to swim teams that are in different conferences and have different schedules. And sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and okay, this isn't necessarily the weekend that we wanted. For instance, we wanted to swim, TCU on our homecoming weekend in November, but, their schedule didn't really jive with our schedule. So we ended up swimming them, the first week in December. And typically we probably would have taken a couple of swimmers to U.S. Open that weekend. But I felt like, okay, it's better for us to have a team meet at that time than just have 1 or 2 swimmers, racing at U.S. Open. So it changes from year to year. We try to get Texas the last weekend, because that's one of our toughest meets. And I think that if we swim the toughest team on our schedule prior to the time that we rest for our conference meet, that's going to help us. So we've got Texas this weekend, the weekend after we swim Texas A&M, which arguably could be the second strongest team on our schedule. But, we had a long break of racing from December the 2nd until January the 14th. So, now having a couple of meets, back to back, I think helps promote what I was talking about in the beginning of swimming fast for, 7 sessions in a conference championship or an NCAA championship.
Right. And it's a great primer for that conference meet and NCAA coming up as well. Yeah, so a theme that we keep going on a lot is being able to adapt to all the different things, whether it's a training schedule or the time of the year it is in school. Obviously, it's a two-way street, right? You can do as much as you can as a coach. You can be so aware. You can adapt to so many things. It's always, or also, part of the swimmer's job too, right? The athlete and the swimmer. So what are some things that you look for when you're recruiting athletes into the program? What do you think makes them successful?
Well, the recruiting, falls into a lot of different categories. We've got to get somebody who's a good student, okay, so they can handle the academic work and do the swimming. So that's going to be a priority for sure. I always talk about people that, talking to the swimmers when I'm recruiting them, if they have the passion. Because if they've got the passion, then they're going to overcome when they're tired or, when they're broken down to maintain the consistency that they need to be a top level swimmer.
Do you remember what one of the best answers you got was to that question?
Well, I'm probably not. But I do know, we recently had a swimmer, come in to visit, and we had talked to the club coach, and I know he's really, hardcore, old school type training type coach, and he indicated that over their 3-week Christmas training period that he only had 3 swimmers that came to all the practices, and the swimmer that we were recruiting was one of those. So we thought, okay, that's probably the type of person we want in our program, that they're going to have that type of discipline and passion, that they're going to make all those practices, because we had a pretty good idea that they had to be pretty broken down, knowing the type of workouts that he gives.
So you mentioned he was an old school type of coach. I'm guessing lots of yards, lots of doubles, building very heavy aerobic bases. It seems like nowadays that sport's getting a lot of attention of more quality over quantity, resting methods, ultra fast race pace training. What's your opinion on all that? How have you seen the sport change?
Well, definitely, I would like to have somebody that has a combination of both. Um, you've got to have speed. If you look at the top results, if you look at the Texas NC State meet results from this past weekend, um, you got to be able to get up and swim fast. You look at the swimmers that swim in the ISL, for instance, where they have a lot of racing, back-to-back type racing. They're swimming fast, so you want to have, but I think you do have to have some background. Okay, and so, in my opinion, you'd want to have a combination of both. And we've always tried to have a season that, where we build up some background, some aerobic threshold, some aerobic base to build on, so that when we get to this time of the season, we're not just going to have one fast meet. We're going to have multiple fast meets. And that's what you need to have if you're going to go from qualifying at a conference championship to the NCAA championships. We always want to be the team that's not done, so to speak, when they get to the NCAAs, that the goal is just to qualify, that the goal is, you qualify, and then you're prepared to do your best at the NCAA championship.
On the flip side of the performance, what do you think makes a good teammate when you're bringing people in?
Definitely somebody who has a caring, supportive type personality is going to make a great teammate. And they don't necessarily have to be the best swimmer on the team. They've got to be somebody who's aware and cares about how their teammates are doing, and gives them the emotional support, positive feedback that they need, to be a part of a great team.
So also, when I was talking to Martina, she mentioned that you were one of the first coaches that started recruiting internationally here in the U.S. So how did you find your way into looking overseas, and what was your approach to that?
That probably started when I was coaching in the early 80s at South Carolina. I realized that there was a lot of great swimmers around the world, and we were looking to develop the team and raise the level of the types of swimmers that were coming to the program and to the university. And then when I first came to SMU, we were kind of hitting the low point, or heading into the low point of college athletics, with the football team going on probation. And it seemed like every parent that I talked to, the dad had been on the football team of the whatever school that he went to, and didn't really believe that SMU was going to be able to have a college swimming team. So we started looking overseas, and started recruiting from that standpoint. And that combination of both, I think, was a great thing. You see it now at every college program in America. So we certainly were at the forefront of that. One of the top swimmers that I first brought to SMU was a woman by the name of Gita Jensen, and she was on our first relay that won NCAAs. And she never won an individual title, but she had a lot of top three finishes, and was incredibly versatile. Middle distance sprint IM swimmer, and was able to recruit her through a contact of a guy that I had recruited. Was one of my first, actually, my first Olympic swimmer, Soren Usberg, who won, made the Olympic team for Denmark, and in 1984, and got in touch with Soren and said, "Hey, I need to recruit some top swimmers here and start building this team up." And he's like, "Well, there's this girl that wanted to go to Stanford, but they don't accept anybody that comes in January. And I was like, okay, we can do that. So got her to come to SMU and, started building up the group from there.
So how do you manage your college season and also having these international swimmers that are on a really high level swimming at world championships, Pan American Games, and representing other countries outside of the U.S.?
I think that having the outdoor pool at SMU was a huge benefit in that regard. That when the college season was over, that we immediately had a long course pool to train in, and it was always set up long course. It wasn't 75 feet wide. It wasn't 25 yards wide. It was 66 feet wide. So 8 lanes, 8-foot lanes. So and a foot on each side. So it was a great place to be able to train, and weather in Dallas is awesome. So we hit the third week of March. NCAAs are over. We're training long course, and so they were always prepared for the big meets in the summertime, whether it was the World Championships or the Olympic Games or European Championships, whatever it was. It did take a lot of my time because I traveled a lot with those swimmers over the course of my career. But it was a lot of fun. We had multiple swimmers from multiple countries. So if I went to the European Championships and had, for example, Martina from Slovakia and Flavia from Switzerland and, Anya from Slovenia, I could be there supporting all of them. And it was a great experience. And I think it helped them that they had college teammates that were focusing on the same thing and had the same types of goals and, were willing to put the work in so that they were prepared when they went to those big meets.
And you mentioned that you had a few Olympians training underneath you. And I know you also were the head coach of both the Slovakian and the Bulgarian teams for over 5 Olympiads or 6.
Well, I was with Martina from 96 on.
Right. So what was it like your first time coaching for the Olympic Games?
That was pretty cool. I had gone in 84. I had 2 swimmers that were swimming in the Olympic Games in LA. I was in the stands, but I was able to, be there with those 2 swimmers, Shelley Kramer from Virgin Islands and Soren from Denmark. So I had been to the Olympics before. I knew, what a great experience it was. 92, I was at the Olympic Games, with Gita and some of the swimmers that we were recruiting at that time. Berit Bugard was coming to SMU after that. So, but my first official assignment was in 96 in Atlanta. And, great experience, absolutely, one of the highlights of my career for sure.
Yeah. What are some of the races that you remember the most?
I think, Martina getting 2 silver medals in her Olympic Games in Sydney was amazing. There were some surprises too. Sarah Nordenstam, who swam at SMU, was never an NCAA All-American. Getting a bronze medal in the 200 breaststroke was pretty shocking, pretty awesome. But just being there and kind of being a part of the experience, when they're going through that, it was really fun. It was really, really fun, and so happy that I was able to be a part of that and help them achieve those types of goals.
Yeah, what's the difference training for the Olympic Games versus training for NCAAs?
I don't know that there's that much difference. There's a little bit, I think in some cases, a little bit different individual focus, because you might be only working with for instance, you know, a lot of times we would go for a training camp with several swimmers from different countries that were training at SMU just prior to the Olympic Games. So then you're working with a smaller group. So, you can really tailor everything that you do to that particular person. And then, sometimes, it might just be one, when, before Rio, Nina was training, for the Olympic Games, and I knew that even though we had everything we needed here in Dallas, it would be beneficial to just have a short time of focusing, and no other distractions. So we went down to Miami, trained down there for I don't know, it might have been 10 days, something like that, prior to going to Rio, because it is difficult once you get to the Olympic Games there's so much going on, and you're getting on buses and going from the village to the training venue, and sometimes the different training venues. So you don't want to be there too far ahead of time, because that gets tiring. So you kind of have to balance that with the excitement of, okay, you're at the Olympics and so forth. But I think the overall focus of the training and preparation is happening for such a long period of time before just the 3 weeks before. There's not that much difference. You have to have that same type of week to week focus and in the preparation to really be ready.
Yeah, so you always hear these crazy stories at the Olympics about some interesting things going on behind the scenes, whether it's one country's trying to use intimidation tactics against the other one, or somebody's trying to mess up somebody else. Let's cheat, maybe. Do you have any stories of things that you came across when you were out there?
Not really. I mean, it's always, just talk, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone's very professional all the time.
Yeah, you just don't know. I mean, I do know one wasn't an Olympics. One of the World Championships that we had in Australia, one of the countries I won't name, had some issues with things that they found in their luggage, performance-enhancing drugs that they found in their luggage as they were coming into the country. So that was, one of the times it was a little bit more than just talk. But you just have to kind of do what you can do, and you can't really worry about what other swimmers are doing or coaches are doing. You just do the best that you can for your own swimmers.
Do you have any ideas, or do you have any preparation already for 2024? I think Olympic trials, the schedule was just posted the other day.
Yeah,
for
the
Indiana.
schedule was just posted. I think the focus will be trying to get some of the current girls on the team, to hit those times. We'll have some long course opportunities. We've got some TYR Pro Series meets this spring. One in March, potentially, that if we have a swimmer that's, even if they're qualified, that we might take there because they could make qualifying time. For sure in April, we'll have a larger group going to the meet in April in Chicago at the FMC, where you did a little master's workout this over break.
Yeah, they have a great group out there.
Yeah.
So I hope they're listening. Shout out to them and Coach Andy.
Yeah, it's a good pool. And we had a couple swimmers that went last year. And the support from the swimmers in the Chicago area, I heard, was just amazing. So that was really a highlight for our swimmers that went to it last year. So we definitely, this year's schedule, they moved it, and it's in April this year. So we're planning to have, as big a group as we can go, you've got to kind of balance that, with the school and so forth. But the swimmers that are, can do it, we want to take a group there and see if we can start inching closer to those Olympic trial qualifying times, and start building that group.
You're mentioning a lot doing professional series meets, international meets, all things that are outside of the college swimming program. And I know a lot of coaches do it and a lot of coaches don't. But overall, it's a lot of work. How do you balance it all?
Well, I mean, I didn't go to Tokyo. So, it's definitely something that, you got to have a have a swimmer that's really, that you put a lot of time and work on helping them. And if it's the situation is there for you to be able to be a part of that, then you make that sacrifice. And it's, a sacrifice that has a lot of, benefits. Certainly my traveling to international meets over the years has helped our recruiting. Younger swimmers from other countries see the coach from SMU working with a swimmer from, Slovakia or Slovenia or, Japan or wherever. That helps recruiting. But it's definitely a balance, and I've definitely made sure to take some breaks, in between, when the last meet's over, before the season starts, to make sure that I get off the pool deck for a week or so. And
yeah, do you think that's important for coaches?
Yeah, it's definitely important. Definitely.
What does a break look like for you?
For me, recently, going up to our cottage up in Michigan and just getting some fishing in and kayaking and hiking and, getting outside, doing stuff like that. Getting out of the Dallas heat in August is always a good idea too.
Yeah, there you go. I always love your stories. You're a pretty outdoorsy guy. You go there a lot in the winter? Did you kind of grow up around lake life and woods life?
Not necessarily in the winter. I did grow up going up there in the summertime. I started swimming pretty late, closer to high school age, where I was really, going full time, versus, a lot of swimmers that, they were in the age group scene from 8 years old on. Yeah. That wasn't me. So, definitely in the summer. We've been going up there for Christmas, recently. That's been a lot of fun.
Did you do any ice fishing?
No, I've never been up there when it's frozen over yet.
There's a lot of people out in Wisconsin who are always trying to pull me into ice fishing. They swear by it.
Yeah.
It's like
a friend of mine was posting some pictures on Instagram this past weekend, and he's showing me all the fish he was catching. So I'm like, wow, doesn't really jive with the college swimming season. So
right. What do you usually fish for?
Trout, brook trout, and then in the bay we'll fish for lake trout and salmon.
Nice. How far out do you go? So you got to get some deep water for lake trout.
Yeah, my friend has a pretty good boat that he can pretty much go anywhere he wants to go. So the bay that we're in is really deep, so you don't have to go that far offshore to get into deep water in the bays around Traverse City. So they're much deeper than where the fish are. So you're really not that far off ashore.
You have any good fishing stories? Biggest one you caught?
No.
Hours in the fighting chair?
No, not really. Most of the fish I catch are about as big as my hand. So.
Oh yeah.
But that's it.
But you don't eat any of those lake trout?
I'll usually keep one a summer. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Because I grew up going to Lake Michigan a lot with my dad. He had a friend that he worked with who had maybe like a 30-foot fishing boat. So we'd always go Friday nights, sleep the night on the boat, go out super early and go for like cohos, kings. Good size fish.
Yeah.
Probably close to 25 pounds. And he had all the rigs too with, I don't know what they're called, but they're essentially like cranes that'll drop the weights. Yeah, downriggers and dipsy divers. And God, as a kid, it was awesome. Just the
Yeah.
idea of sitting there fighting a fish for 5-10 minutes,
Yeah.
then pulling out this monster. It's almost as big as you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I would have done that when I was little. That would have been crazy, but it's still fun. It's
Yeah.
still fun.
You got
Yeah.
plenty of time to keep at it, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, outside of fishing, how do you balance, I guess, your personal life, having a family? You have a wife, 2 lovely kids. One's in college. Both are in college.
Both in college. Yeah.
Right. So, how do you balance that with being coach?
Fortunately, the kids are close by, so get to see them a lot. And they're both helped me as team managers here on the team. So my daughter Hannah and Kate will come over and help me clean the deck or clean the stainless steel at the pool and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. Getting to see them. Kate's psychology lab that she works at's right across the street from the pool, so she'll stop by practice afterwards or bring Naya and myself coffee. And then Tony and I, we basically just spend all the rest of our time together. So my wife Tony and I, so try to do a lot of biking. When I'm the trails, the bike trails are right here by the pool. They'll go out to White Rock and ride around the lake. So, definitely got to keep up the good exercise,
Yeah.
Stay in good shape.
What kind of regimen do you have to stay in shape? I mean, you're kicking butt at meets. I see you running up and down the pool deck, jumping up and down.
Yeah, I have to say it. I do a really good job throughout the season, and then we hit this time of year, and it just is not good. It's not good. So I got to get back at it. Get back on my bike, and make sure I try to ride every day. And I don't go on super long rides. My sister is like a semi-professional single track mountain bike racer, and so I mean, what I do pales in comparison. But if I just get out and ride for 5 miles or 10 miles and get my heart rate up a little bit, I'm okay.
Yeah, do you still hop in the water at all?
Not too much. Right before the Swim Across America, I always try to get in a little bit so I feel like I remember how to swim. But I think I'm around the pool so much I don't end up wanting to go to master's practice with you guys.
Right. It's just another 2 hours or hour that you could.
It would definitely be an hour.
That's too much. It throws everything out of balance, like we were just talking about, right?
Yeah. But the biking's okay. Biking's okay.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I always see you coming into practice, especially when the weather's nice.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the tough question. When I was prepping for this, I pretty much asked everybody who knows you or who knows of you, what's a topic that they'd like to hear you talk about or a question. And we've gone through a whole bunch of them, but one of them that came up a lot is, what's your plan for the next few years?
Oh, I think I'll, keep coaching until I don't feel the passion for it. And then I'll dive into the fly fishing, situation a little bit more heavy than I have been able to. So, no immediate plans right now, but, I think it's important that, when I think the passion's not there, then, move on and turn the reins over to somebody else. But for now, it's, I'm still loving it. And,
You're still kicking butt doing it too.
Yeah, pumped about this, conference championship coming up. So
yeah, you have a super long legacy, and I'd guess by what you're saying, by the time that time comes, you'd be easily 40 years here. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right. What do you think, or I guess, what are you looking for? What would you be looking for in somebody to fill in your shoes?
I think everybody, I look back when I took over the team, I was pretty young. I had some head coaching experience and had some teams that had finished in the top 10, top 20. But I think, somebody that's going to come in and recruit at a really high level and, care about the legacy of the program would be something that I would, love to see. At the same time, in this, era, I don't think that the coach has that much to do with the hiring process. So I don't think when coaches leave that they're naming their successors and that type of thing. I think that that's maybe that happened a lot in the past, but I don't think that'll happen in today's world too much.
Yeah. But I mean, you never know who's listening. And clearly you've been doing a damn good job for 40 years. So I have no place, but if I were in a position to make any kind of decision on who's coming in next, I'd probably be listening to this and hearing out what you have to say if I haven't already scheduled a meeting with you on it already.
I don't know about that.
So what's something about coaching college swimming that you don't think anybody else would really understand unless they've been through it for 30 plus years?
A lot of people that are going into college coaching have been an assistant, so they have some background. But I do think a lot of people don't that aspire to be a head coach don't have full realization of all the different aspects that go along with it. They see coaching at the meet, they know about practice, but as far as the dynamics of working within an athletic department, the dynamics of working with alumni, fundraising, the dynamics of working with scheduling of the facility, budget, all those types of things, and then the overall of working with all the different individuals and making them, click as a group. So I think a lot of times the coaches that are getting the head coaching jobs, they might have been an assistant, but they've been working with one particular group. They just were focused on those, 10 or 11 or 12 swimmers and their daily, progress and weekly progress and their season, but not really all the different, things that go along with, being a head coach. So it's definitely a different dynamic. But every school's different. Some schools have really big staffs and have a lot of support staffs and that are specific to swimming, and some have those support staffs, but they're sharing that person with multiple teams or those types of things. So I mean, every situation's totally different, I think, in the college swimming world. I mean, you've got programs that are similar to like when I first started, that there was just a head coach and a couple of volunteers. So and they do really well. So you just have to figure out how to make your situation work and do what's best for your team and your university, and try to do the best job you can.
Sounds like a lot of management kind of on the technical behind the scenes, and then also a lot of communication with just anybody who's a stakeholder in the program, like you said, the university, alumni. So is there any trick in the book that you have to keep the program really relevant to everybody who's involved outside of on deck?
I think you just have to kind of learn your situation, and also figure out what's going to help, your team, a couple years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, because I think everybody can benefit from the support of those different stakeholders, or every program could. But you've got to be able to take the time and energy to develop that, to make it happen. So I know there's a lot of talk about that within the College Swim Coaches Association, fundraising techniques and networking techniques to build those types of relationships. We're fortunate at SMU that there was a program here for a lot of years before I came. Then, had developed those types of relationships, and we've always worked hard to maintain that and build on it.
All right. Let's kind of start to wrap things up.
Okay.
But one question I always like to ask is the final question is, get out of here, guys. We'll edit that part out or just leave it in. So if you were in my shoes.
One of our stakeholders.
Yeah. So if you're in my shoes kind of guiding the conversation, what's a topic or a question that you would ask that I haven't brought up yet?
I don't know. You've been covering a lot of stuff. I mean,
Did a little bit of homework
about, coach's background and, my experiences as a coach, family life. I don't know. You've pretty much covered the gamut. I'd say you did a great job.
That's a perfectly acceptable answer too.
I appreciate all your questions, and hopefully it's beneficial for somebody that's excited to learn about college swimming.
Absolutely. And thank you. I appreciate you coming out
My
here, spending
pleasure.
an hour chatting.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
My pleasure.
Well, thanks, Steve. I'll see you on deck.
Okay. Thank you.